Hello everybody, this is Angel of Random Honest Reviews, and today I'm really stoked because it's our first video podcast and we're talking about a really interesting subject, which is music production. And I have two really cool guests here with me. The first one is currently a freelance music arranger, bedroom producer, and a guitarist for the J-pop influenced band Synchronea. Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah. He's also an assistant recording engineer specializing in recording live classical concerts under recording engineer Holland Buella. He has recorded notable ensembles including the Philippine Philharmonic Orchestra and the Manila Symphony Orchestra prior to the pandemic. He's also played as a session musician for a few bands, most notably Cuatro Cantos. He describes himself as a mediocre guitarist and poet who writes poems in 5/7/5. So let's welcome Kevin Cruz.
Hello.
Kevin.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Thank you for coming in. And finally, we have our next guest is a musician, composer, and performer who currently has his own studio called La Balls, located at Makati. And in the year 2020, he started his very own distribution label, Eclectic Kiss. He's currently a part of a range of acts, including indie rock band Twin Lobster, electro-pop group Moonwalk Manila. Did I say that correctly, Nick? And the eccentric Picoy. A lot of people may not know that he's a professional producer. He even produced songs of renowned artists like Moira de la Torre, Clara Benin, Grace Note, and even a Christmas jingle of the internet sensation Mimia. So let's welcome Nick Lazaro.
Oi,
Nick.
what's going on?
Okay. Thank you guys for being here. So chill chat lang talaga. First thing that I wanna ask, because like the pandemic hit and a lot of people are producing music at home, diba?
Mhm.
So for you guys, if you're going to define music production to these laymen who started producing music at home, how would you describe it, and what is it not? What are the things that they should know about music production? So anyone can go first.
All right. Kevin, why don't you go first?
Okay. I was about to say, Kuya Nick, go first, but okay. So, for me, music production, since I'm just a bedroom producer and haven't worked on anything major yet, so to simplify it, especially from my perspective, it's getting your music out there. So from the songwriting process to distributing it, it's taking control of that process, making sure that it gets out there. So yun na lang talaga.
That's actually like a perfect answer, because well, like in like earlier times, I'm not like mega. I mean, like, you know, from the beginning of the whole like whole thing of like recording and like arranging and things to do with like the professional aspect of it. When you would say production, usually like what a music producer would do like back then was, I mean, he would be the one to get together all the musicians and all the things possible to make that song come to life. But nowadays, since like you can just do it in your bedroom, you're basically producing these sounds like on your own by yourself. So the term is not exactly the same as it was before, but I mean it's evolved because of the technology. So in a layman's term, you can sometimes put music producer and music arranger and composer like kind of all in the same umbrella. So like the lines are very skewed now, like everything is put together, so it's no more like hiwalay, they're all together.
So you mean like one man can do everything now?
Yeah, basically,
sense.
because
Yes.
before what the producer would do would he like what I said, he would have to physically get like a guy who could play bass, physically get a person who can play drums, and then physically get like all the other musicians for this solo artist. And then, I mean, he wasn't even the guy to arrange it either. Then he would have to get the arranger But nowadays, the music producer can just do all of it. Because it's just convenient, it's cheaper, and we have the technology to do so.
Yeah, that's correct. Pero syempre, it takes skill to really produce a good music on your own.
Yes, I think it's a little bit of everything. Even before, uh, I think what like what Kuya Nick said, um, before the music producer is the guy who gets all these people to work on a certain piece of music. Now, there is also something called A&R involved. So so he gets the people to work on it, and for the or make sure he gets the right people for the right music to work on. The reason why I said it's a little bit of everything, because the producer has to be in control of who he gets. So he has to know if this guy's good. He has to know uh, if if this works well with what he is working on, and so forth.
Is there some like a misconception about music production na you come across with some people, and something that makes you kind of cringe sometimes?
Well, to me, it's like the whole cringe aspect of it is like kind of the name itself. I kind of don't like the name. Oh, I'm a music producer, like because I mean, it can kind of have like a scummy connotation at times, because nowadays how like the younger kids view music producers, it's like oh yeah, like I'll make you like this beat, and then like I'm gonna get you to like put your vocals on it, and then let's collab. Like I hate those terms. So like I mean, I want people to know that I'm actually kind of like a music arranger. I'm actually a composer. But then in order for me to like sort of, get jobs too, I need to identify myself as a producer, just because of how things are viewed now. I mean, I have actually done the real like production like part in terms of like being the music producer who gathers people. But like nowadays, since we're stuck in the pandemic, it's like things really have to be by ourselves. And we have to take on that role now of how people think of it. You're a producer, so you make music at home, or like you're a producer, you like produce beats on your computer. So it's it's there's a lot of cringy things, but like I just like the whole like I'm gonna produce a beat on my computer and then you put your voice on it. That's not really what it is, like to me. But baka Kevin has like a better one. I don't know.
But pero am I correct when I say na hindi ka talaga producer if you really don't actually know how to play an instrument? Should that be one of the parts of being a producer? You really have to know how to create your own music, not just take out a beat from YouTube or something. Am I correct in that notion?
Well, I mean, not necessarily. If you're thinking about it like in the older sense of like, oh, you were the guy getting people in the studio. Sometimes all you would need is just that drive. Like, I love music. I know exactly who to get for this. But like, you don't need to exactly know how to play or write or whatever. You just got to have that drive. But maybe nowadays, because we're doing it all ourselves, you need to maybe at least know a little bit of like tech, you have to be tech savvy. You need to know how to use a mouse and then make a note, and then you need to have a sense of rhythm and stuff like that. Kevin, what do you have to say about this?
Well, regarding that, I think to a certain degree, it depends. Like what I said earlier, getting the right people. It's important to have at least an idea how to tell if someone is skilled or the right musician for the music, or if you are getting the right engineer. But from I think in from back then, it wasn't really that important. But today, since we're doing it on our own, that's where skill comes in.
So parang things change nga like you said. So it really evolved, especially now during the pandemic.
Mm-mm.
So you really
It has its pros and cons. Definitely has its pros and cons. I mean, like before, you didn't need to. You just need to have that drive. But now
you
you
have
need
to have
to
the skill.
know how to do stuff, but you
Mm.
don't need to necessarily know other people who do. So it's like it's like a tilting sort of thing, you know? Like good for you mismo, but maybe not good for the person like who doesn't have the advantage of having technology, you know, or like doesn't have the advantage of knowing how to play music, you know. So it's but it makes them want to learn also, you know. So that's cool.
Actually, I see nga na buti na lang, Nick, you have all the things in your studio, in your home studio. I mean, you have a complete setup, right?
Oh my
So-
god, I had to get all this stuff from scratch. Like I've gotten every single piece of equipment. Like I've gotten everything. Like it took me maybe like 4 years because I would have to kind of sneak buying all of these these pieces of equipment from my wife. Like she'd be like, "Wait, you like we never had that before," and I'd be like, "What are you talking about?" You know, it'd be like another cymbal, or like a new guitar amp, or like another guitar, and then like eventually I had this like entire studio in our house, and she's like, how did you do this?" I'm just like, I didn't tell you. But it came in handy because like I haven't been able to go back to my studio in Makati. But what's cool is that like I had the idea to build this space like even before the pandemic, because you know I knew like, oh, I'm gonna do some like arranging things, and like I actually play all these instruments, so like a lot of people actually like real instruments, you know. And like buti na lang I built this before the pandemic, and like yeah, it was a lifesaver. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing production the way that I am, you know.
what are the basic starter kits that you would recommend to people who would like to start their own music production stuff?
Well, in my case, I started with just a guitar, a borrowed interface, tapos laptop ng nanay ko. so so back then merong yung netbook. So parang 11-inch na laptop. I think parang sobrang pasok lang sa minimum system requirements ng DAW. Tapos then I borrow an interface and then just plug the guitar directly. I think that's as minimal as I can get back then. Then nalo lang ako ng headphone somewhere sa claw machine or something like that. Then yun na yung ginamit ko. I think it depends actually on the kind of music that you want to work on. But back then, simple rock band, and then tapos may mahihiraman naman ako ng gamit. So I didn't buy anything back then. Nanghihiram-hiram lang ako here and there. That's how I started. Pero nung wala na akong access dun sa gamit na yun, I think laptop, interface, yung gitara ko mismo, and then a MIDI keyboard. So yun, plus headphones.
That's like exactly like, I mean, there's if it's bare bones, like that's exactly what you need. But again, you also have to think about if like what type of like what musician are you? Like if you're a drummer, you know, you're gonna need, you know, like you're gonna need at least 2 mics, and then with the stands. Or like if you're not just gonna play guitar, if you want to do vocals, you need to get like a vocal mic. It doesn't have to be expensive.
Mm.
You just kind of have to or like if you, what other musicians are there? If there's like a like you play like a violin or something. Yeah, you need like a good vocal mic. Just stuff like that. You just have to adapt to the type of music that you're gonna be making. But if you are gonna do it in terms of like, you know, you want to be like a guy who makes beats and like wants to do it all by yourself, I think yes, exactly what Kevin said. The interface, the laptop, the 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 instrument, the guitar. But what's very important is like at least like a little keyboard to control your MIDI, because nowadays people are using, you know, instruments on the computer, and in order to control that, well, you need to have some sort of control surface, like a little 25 key keyboard. Like that's all you need. And then like also very important, a vocal mic if you're going to be making your own music, stuff like that. Unless you're going to be doing instrumental stuff, but also having a vocal mic gives you the option to record other things. Like I want to record this like sound from I'm going to tap it or whatever. I'm going to get that good sound, or I'm going to record like an acoustic guitar. I want to get a real acoustic sound. Things like that. So again, it doesn't have to be super huge. It doesn't have to be like a big mega startup thing, because if you're just starting up, you don't want to buy the crazy stuff and then eventually you're actually not really into it and you're stuck with all these things. The best thing to do is to start very small and then grow it up. Because even with me, even in La Balls, all I started out in La Balls was like just a little 8-channel mixer and a computer and some microphones, and that's it. Like I made like the worst recordings when I first started, but I was cheap, so people went to me. And then I eventually got better and better, and I grew it. And then it's still not like the best place. Actually, I have a story. Like I had this one band come in. I'm not gonna mention who they are. They're a bigger band. But then when they saw my place, they were almost about to sign off because they didn't believe that it was a recording studio. Because La Balls is actually inside of an office space that I share with another office with my family. And then they see that the drum room is like a bodega and it like looks terrible and everything's gross. And I'm like, no, I swear to God, like I'm the guy who did O Flamingo. I'm the guy who did Ourselves the Elves. I'm the guy who did freaking Moira, man. Like you have to believe me. So it took a lot of effort to convince them, and then eventually, you know, my point, I have like the crappiest equipment and I'm still able to do this professionally. Just build yourself up, basically.
What's your DAW or DAW? What do you use? What would you recommend?
As for me, I highly recommend Cakewalk because it's free. It's full featured and free. I think this goes back to when Gibson gave up on the company Cakewalk. Back then, Cakewalk was still called Sonar, if I remember it right. And then, so Gibson's downfall, they gave up that company, and then now Cakewalk is owned by BandLab. So that BandLab made it free, but still retaining most of the features. So I highly recommend it. But I think if you bought an interface brand new, I think meron ka nang makukuha na DAW na libre. Usually the light editions. For example, let's say for Zoom interfaces, you can get Cubase LE for free. That's already included. Or if you get an Audio Box 96, you will get Studio One Artist, I think. But there's also a free version that doesn't require the hardware, but that has certain limitations. For starting out, I did not mind the limitations I had back then. But since I'm working on other things, medyo grabe yung limitations na yun ngayon para sa akin.
I've been using Ableton Live ever since 2004, when Ableton Live was like Ableton Live 3, and now you have Ableton Live like 12 or something now. It must sound like crazy, but I stopped at Ableton Live 9. So I've been using Ableton Live 9 for like forever. Well, not forever. I mean, like for like the longest time out of all of the Abletons that I've used. And I'm not gonna lie, it's like it's very difficult to use, but like, only because I've been using it for like how many years? Like however many years is 2004. It's a lot of years. So but by knowing Ableton like up and down, I can do like you can tell me to do anything and I can do it for you. Like you can tell me like I want like an alien fart, you know, like I'll do it for you, you know, like it can be anything. So like so yeah, that's the thing. You just gotta take the time to really learn it. And kids nowadays are very savvy with technology, so I mean, if you just stick to it, you learn it, it'd be cool. But if you don't have like the budget and you don't have the time and you want to get something done really quick, like I mean, if you use a Mac, use GarageBand, because I've messed around with it before, and like it's really easy to make stuff on it. And believe it or not, like 90% of the stuff that like Picoy makes is like made on GarageBand, and like her music is ridiculous. Check it out. It's on Spotify. You can check her out. Picoy, Pikoy. Super good, ridiculous, like off kilter, eclectic, animated music. Ridiculous, super cool. But if you're like a PC user and you need something free, try out Reaper. Reaper is really cool because it's basically Pro Tools, but like for free. And like Pro Tools like super sucks because it's like expensive and like
crashes all the time.
Crashes all the time, and like I'm the one to talk though. I'm like illiterate at Pro Tools because I've been doing Ableton my whole life. Like there's this one time I worked on a job for this other this like ad agency house, and like they're like, hey Nick, can you like sit in and like record the vocals for this VO that we're gonna be doing? And then I kind of lied to them. I was like, yeah, I know Pro Tools, yeah. And I'm like, I went in there and I'm like, guys, I don't know.
Is it a disaster?
Yeah. So I had to I had to like borrow one of their engineers because I was indeed the producer for that job. So like, and then I told them, yeah, I can do Pro Tools. Like, I went in there, I'm like, what's this green thing, guys? Like, what's this? How do you like cut this part? Like, I look like such a noob, but like, you know, it's just really like that. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend. And like, you know, as long as you're exporting stuff in Wave or whatever, like, you can choose any DAW that you want. I just don't recommend Pro Tools. Pro Tools sucks.
Yeah, it's that bad.
Curious tuloy ako, how much is the Ableton 9? How much is it?
Ableton's really expensive though. It's like super expensive for the full suite.
Okay.
For the full suite, it's something like $500.
Whoa.
Yeah. So yeah, but like it's. I mean, if you're doing what I do,
Yeah.
it's well worth the investment.
It's worth it.
You know.
It's a one-time thing lang naman, di ba? When you buy it, it's yours for years.
Yeah. Well,
Depends.
I mean, I had to reach. I mean, that's the reason why I'm on Ableton Live 9, as opposed to being on like 13.
Oh,
Because
there are upgrades.
Because
kasi.
I just can't afford it anymore. So I'm like, yeah, I'm good with it only because I'm like, I don't have that money, you know. But like, I'm good. I'm good where I can still do whatever people ask me with what I have, you know.
So you could just explore with different DAWs that you can work with. So ganon. So any naman will work as long as you are willing to explore them, right?
Yeah, they all
Yes.
work, and like everything can be cross used as long as you export into Wave or like
Wave
or
files.
Mm.
whatever format. Like if they're gonna be doing MP3s, go ahead, go. Like I mean, unless you're gonna be doing like Dolby 8 point or whatever, like Atmos or whatever, you don't need to have it at such a high resolution. You can you can even export it in like MP4 as long as it's like 48 kilohertz or whatever, and it's all good. Hey, like to tell you the truth, I've worked professionally with all this stuff, but like I'll be honest, like I'm not really good at terms like at all. Like even like when like there's a lot of nerds. They're like, oh yeah, like like you can cut it like the 100
They
frequency.
know the
When people like
hertz and
when
frequencies.
people when I try to explain things to people, I'm like, well, when you get your EQ, like make like a mountain, and then like I don't know things. I purely use my ear with a lot of things like that. So it's like so I might sound kind of not smart right now when I'm talking, but it just goes to show if you have that dedication and that ear, it'll take you places. You don't need to be all like technical. Like I just said, oh yeah, the resolution of an MP3 can be like 48 kilohertz, but I don't even know if I'm using the right terms, but like I hope I am, you know. But whatever. I don't know. I may have said too much. Probably shouldn't have said that. So
No,
yeah.
actually, that's true. I agree. Kasi sometimes people
Yeah.
can say technical terms, but when
Mm.
they do the actual thing, they suck. So it works like that too. I do agree. So with your case, Nick, you know what you do by ear, with your musicianship skills, but in terms of technical aspects, minimal lang. But it's fine. I think it really happens. I mean, there are people like that.
Yeah.
Ikaw ba, Kevin, do you have that knowledge on technical science like
Well,
kilohertz? Kasi di ba like when you export, it says insane
mm-mm.
320 kbps
Yeah.
file.
Well, I think I think my knowledge of the technical terms, as far as I know, is what I needed to know, and what I needed to know and what I can understand. But if there's really advanced stuff that I cannot understand by just reading, I don't bother actually. Uh,
As long as it comes out great, right? Yung tunog, the
yes.
overall
Well,
sound of it.
Well, I think there are some things that you need to know. Like say for example, if you are working with other people, format is important. The specifications of that file is important, but you don't need to know exactly why. You just have to sort of do them. But I think there is a merit to understanding why, but it will not really translate to great music, great production, great mixes. A lot of people shower others with terms, with technical jargon, but if it's bad, it's bad. If it sounds great, it's great. Yun lang.
Okay, thank you for that. So, punta tayo sa clients. I'm very curious. Have you had terrible clients? Who are the best clients that you've ever had? What made them great clients to you? Things like that. Share experiences when you worked with a lot of people.
I've had like all colors of the rainbow. Like I've had clients that like I'll be like, oh my god, they're coming in. Oh, God, it's gonna be so fun, like. Or I've had clients that like, oh my god, this guy's coming back, whatever. I'm not gonna disclose, but like, what I can tell you are mostly the horror stories come from the people that come in that like don't know. It's not necessarily they don't know how to do anything. It's more like they don't know what they want to do. So I once had this band come in, and then like I did. I'm just I just charge for the recording fee because like I'm not producing them. Like I'm just the guy who's just gonna record them and hit record and just okay, you have your song, I'll help you out and I'll get it on recording. But I didn't charge the producing fee. So I'm not gonna I'm not gonna help you out. It's like these guys are like stuck in my office. I had to kick them out because I was like, you guys don't even know what you're doing. Like, I don't. I'm not gonna continue with this because like we've been doing this one drum track, and then you keep like adding stuff, and then like you don't know what to do with your guitar tracks. You haven't even done the vocals yet. It's already like 1 a.m. I kicked them out because they just didn't know what to do. I told them to record somewhere else. So, or like, okay, here's another one. Like, I once had this drummer for like this metal band come in, and he like set up his entire ridiculous monster like Dream Theater looking kit. Like there, he put like 4 extra toms. He had like 3 chinas, and like he had like all these splashes and stuff like that. And like when we were recording, the song was just this AC/DC beat. It was just boom. I'm
So hindi niya nagamit.
What did we set up all this stuff for? You know, so it's like, you know, I'll tell you about the good ones though. The best clients are the ones that make you laugh, because on the inverse of what I'm trying to say, it's like this band was like terrible. It like sucked. They're like so bad. The drummer can't like drum the metronome, and like the singer is like super walang tono, and then like the bass player is not good. You know, the only guy that can pretty much play is like the guitar player. But like these guys are so funny and like so happy to record, and like we're so game to just basically get recorded. Was basically them. It was that was like their music sucked, but because the experience was so cool and so funny and so fun to have, like every session they ended up recording their entire EP with me. I'm not gonna disclose who it is though, because it's like I don't want to get in trouble. But like their attitudes, like every time the singer would go and like record his stuff, like, and when he would mess up, he'd like make me laugh. He'd like make the entire room laugh, and it was so fun, like just so animated every time. So like I was happy to record those guys, even though they like sucked, you know. So like attitude is like the key. If you want to have a good time recording, or you want to have a good time producing a band or whatever, like try to keep the mood and the attitude nice. Then you get a sound that's sincere. Because that metal band that I recorded with the like the crap, like the drummer with like all the drums and stuff, I mean, yeah, their music was like, it was tight. It was good. It was like systematically very well recorded. But I had such a bad time recording them that like I couldn't feel any heart in it. You know, so sincerity is also very important. You know,
mas effective ang music if there's heart
Yeah.
in it. So
Yeah.
if you feel it,
Yeah.
it has a meaning for the musicians, for the composer. It's better. I think it
Yeah.
comes across to sa music na makikreate mo.
Yeah.
So what about you, Kevin? Meron bang mga experiences?
I think sa case ko, I mainly work on making karaoke files. So, I think not really bad clients per se, but more like clients that put me on the spot.
Oo nga, napag-usapan natin yun.
or some clients that really that are already in a bad situation, they need some kind of help, and then when they pass the work on to me, I feel a lot of stress. I feel really rushed. So it's not they're not exactly bad clients, but they're it's just really uncomfortable working in situations where everything is not under control at all. There's also times na without prior notice, hey, I had this file request, and then the due date is 2 days later, and then when I listen to the file,
Sobrang
It's
hirap
really hard.
iayos.
Sobrang hirap. Sobrang hirap.
Parang
I think
nakaka-relate ako dyan, Kevin.
sobrang hirap. There was this time na nag-brown out dito, tapos parang we had no power like for like one full day. Tapos sobrang kinakabahan ako na baka tawagan ako kasi parang sobrang lapit na nung due date. So parang yan lang talaga yung mga uncontrollable situations na nandun sila. Tapos meron pang times na I think yung bigla-bigla na lang tatawag out of nowhere, or parang ako kasi parang I easily panic kapag may phone call. And then parang I think yeah, parang sobrang nakakagulat lang siya.
So, parang demanding clients ba to? Like, have you ever had some demanding clients na nakakainis na?
Wala namang sobrang demanding, pero lang talaga, yung mga clients na mahilig mang rush. To the point na parang just to finish it, may times na hindi ako naliligo, hindi ako kumakain. There are really times like that. So parang they're not really bad. They will just put you in really weird situations out of your control. As for good clients naman, ito yung mga halimbawa, magbibigay ng request sa'yo parang na meron kang parang reasonable amount of time to work on it. Especially kapag halimbawa, napag-usapan nyo, like you talked about when they are targeting it, when they want it finished. So, yung people with clear instructions and reasonable amount of time. Yun yung mga preferred clients ko.
Okay, that's fair enough. Ikaw ba, Nick, meron ka bang demanding clients
Man.
din like?
Like, yeah, I mean, like, it's not about the time, but it's more on like, okay, so I have my own sound as like a guy who like, arranges and produces or like whatever. Like people who want to come with me and get like the sound that because they've heard something I've done, and then they're like, hey, that, like, I really like what you did there. Can we do it like that? And I'm like, okay. So I'm like doing my thing, and then like there'll be certain like I like bands like with this one in particular. I'm not gonna say, but like it's like, so I did it in the way that they asked me to, like the way that I usually do things. And then it's like they're like, hey, can you switch this, like this, I want this peg, and then they give me like a totally different peg. I'm like, oh, all right, cool, let's do that. And then after I give them what they wanted, then they go like, oh, can we have this peg instead, like for the sound? And then so they give it to me, and I'm like, hey, oh, okay. Like I think like 7 times with like what they wanted it to sound like, and I was just being really nice because usually I like if it's a, if it's someone that like I'm willing to work with, I don't really like overcharge. I'm not all like, okay, like you have to pay me again for this. I mean, even with this band, I told them, because it was so many times, I was like, hey, I have to charge you extra for this now. They kept doing it. They're not satisfied. And then like eventually, like, it's like I worked so much for this. Like I did so many different like deviations and revisions and things like that. And then like a month later when it's released, I hear it's like remixed by somebody else. And I'm like,
Oh my god.
what's all that work for, Like
Offensive.
I understand that you're not happy with the exchange, but if you weren't happy like the 3rd time, you could have just told me, like there's a lot of bands out there that like I guess it's kind of the culture here. Like people are just kind of like they get like super hiya to tell you what they really want if they're not exactly like the tough type of person, they're not gonna tell you to your face because they're kind of shy too, you know. So they'll beat around the bush. A lot of artists and a lot of bands here without telling you the truth. And like, I really wish they would just tell me the truth. And it's like, I mean, there's another band that, again, I don't want to say, but I did do one successful single with them, and then they were supposed to like do the entire album, and then like halfway through the process, they didn't like the way that I was sort of like directing the band, and then they just straight up said like hey, like we really enjoyed, but then like before we get too deep into this, like we'll have to pull out because we were kind of expecting something else. And I was totally okay with that because it's like, hey, cool, we didn't waste like all this time. So again, it's like when people, it's not so much of the demand, but it's more of like the wasting time, which super sucks. But oh wait, I want to say one last thing though, because Kevin was talking about like karaoke. I had an interesting client once because like I once had to work, like I got this one job to like sort of do like a rearranging of this like Japanese karaoke that is actually in Tagalog. So this was really weird. But it's like the song is in Japanese, but it has like Filipino dialogue in it because it's about like being a maniac and like trying to get with like a girl. It's really weird. Anyway, so I had these like I had like, okay, the clients mismo, they were all Japanese. Like the guy funding it was like straight up like they were from Japan. And then like 3 Japanese guys were the vocalists. And then they're like in there singing they're like doing their tracks in like Tagalog Japanese. And then the one Pinoy talent was the girl that was in this one song. And I just want to say it was really interesting because these 3 Japanese guys grew up in the Philippines, but they only knew how to speak either Tagalog or Japanese. No one knew English. So, and me, like I know how to speak Tagalog, but like not ridiculously well. I can speak well enough, but I'm not super good. But I had a friend of mine that was in the room, and it was very surreal because he never really ever heard me speak Tagalog. In this instance, I was like forced to speak Tagalog because these Japanese guys didn't know how to speak English, and I don't know how to speak Japanese. So what I'm trying to say is that like, aside from the demanding, aside from the people who waste your time, and aside from the people who do give you a good time, you're gonna get these clients out of left field, like where you will not know how to act. But what's good is that, number one, if you can adapt to your situation and make the client like happy, because again, these are your clients. Like, no matter if they're like a pain in the ass, or if they're like huge bitches, or if they're really cool, you have to make them comfortable. Otherwise, number one, you're not gonna get the best product. Number two, like, it's just gonna be a miserable time for everybody. And number three, they probably won't come back to you if you gave them a bad time. So again, it's like, regardless of who your client is, even if they give you like the worst attitude, you've got to act like inverse to that. You've got to make them want to come back. So that's one important thing that I want to say about clients in general.
Okay, thank you for that, Nick. So, punta tayo sa song part or sa music part. What for you makes a good song? Yung you're happy to work with that. Syempre, siguro preference din ng genre, am I correct? Or even, no matter what genre, meron bang element that makes a good song for you, that you'd really love to work on that particular music?
Actually, I think a lot of people who are or my friends or who personally know me, I think they all know that I really liked J-pop and J-rock. But so there was this time I worked for a certain company who makes karaoke files for Japanese clients. So the songs we were working on, lahat Japanese or at least yung sa akin. May iba nag-work on other languages pero yung sa akin, since I was just starting out, so mainly Japanese yung tinatrabaho ko. Then first few songs, since I really like J-pop, okay naman siya. Pero siguro after working on some songs, after some stressful days, na lagi ako pinapagalitan doon sa company na yun. Medyo sinumpa ko siya. Medyo sinumpa ko yung genre. So, I think it does not really matter if you like the genre. Actually, it's more of ano yung attitude mo towards it. Kasi may mga times na kunwari as karaoke arranger, okay, sige, parang before preference ko, J-pop, J-rock, ganun. Pero as arranger, pag nakakakuha ko ng files na hip-hop, na mainly, parang bass, drum, konting electric piano, tapos paulit-ulit, copy-paste, I think, parang yun, natatapos ko siya agad. Pero kapag halimbawa, yung mga songs that back then gusto ko, kung yun yung tatrabahuhin ko na medyo matagal, tapos ang daming instruments, kunwari may piano, may trumpets. Medyo nawawalan ako ng gana kapag mga ganong files. Pero kasi, contrary to being creative, kasi since karaoke arranger ako, I'm more like a factory worker. So, yun, depende sa sitwasyon or kung how I feel about getting that certain or how I feel about having to work on that certain music. Ano yung attitude ko towards it. Yun yung mas critical sa case ko. But although yung nakakapag-record na ako ng kanta namin, say, for example, yung mga originals ng Synchronea, yun, talagang tinatrabaho ko yun, tapos na-enjoy ko even though I keep listening to it for hours and hours and hours. I think, yun talaga yung nag-matter sa akin. Kasi gusto ko yung kanta and it's not something toxic for me. Contrary to the stuff na na-experience ko as a karaoke arranger. Yun.
What about you, Nick? What makes a good song for you?
I mean, it's so broad, like, with the artists that I usually work with, it's like, it's so contrary to what I really like, I'm not gonna lie, I like really super brutal death metal. Like, I listen to that when I'm driving to where I need to go, or like, if I'm like exercising, I listen to like a lot of Cannibal Corpse, I listen to a lot of like Dying Fetus. I also like other types of really heavy music like Meshuggah or like Converge, stuff like that. And it's really weird because I've produced like the poppiest people in the Philippines, or like the indie rock kids and stuff like that, and it's sort of become my niche. So what I'm trying to get at is that it's not so much like, oh, what makes a good song. It's not the genre, like exactly what Kevin said. It's like, it's you just gotta look for what's good about it. And if it's not so, I understand that, yeah, Kevin makes karaoke songs and sometimes it becomes like cookie cutter, like it's the same thing and it sucks, like exactly with me. I prefer to work with artists that have something different brought to the table. Like my case in point, it's like when I discovered Decoy, like she is like there's like literally nobody like her in the Philippines. She's like my favorite artist right now because she's so unique. So she's one of the reasons why I named my label Eclectic Kiss, because she's eclectic. It's like the music is just so out of this world, but at the same time very fun and very, like, it's accessible to your ears to listen to. It's not like me. I like to listen to crazy like blast beats and noise, but then it's like her music is like, it's a different type of heavy, and it's sincere. I like music that's very sincere, like it's very true to what it is. So a good song isn't like, okay, like verse, chorus, verse, then like pre-chorus, and then like oh, there's gonna be a drop, or like, like I don't like those things that are like all the same. I don't like, and to be honest, like even the newer stuff, it's unique. Like today I heard something by like, I don't know. I was like listening to 89.9 earlier, and like I think it was like something by Drake or something, and like it's new. It's something new, but I can't like understand anything. It's just like and then I heard like 5 other songs after that, and they all sounded exactly the same. So if it's like, it's probably new because like I'm kind of not in that same era of what these, like the kids are like, what Gen Z is like listening to now, or like all that TikTok type music is just sort of like, I don't know. But again, what I like to look for, what makes a good song to me, and like I don't speak for everybody. What makes a good song to me is like, number one, very good lyrics. It could be like the shittiest beat, or it could be like the crappiest like arrangement, but like if your lyrics are really good, it'll automatically make it a good song. Okay? Now, like contrary to that, like if your music your music can't be too kalat. Like a good song does not need to have like a guitar solo at the same time as there's like vocals going on. So, for instance, what makes a good song is like the arrangement. I've recorded a lot of bands and a lot of like amateur artists that like they want to keep like layering everything, and I'm like, why do you have like 10 guitars going on right now, and then your drummer is trying to do a fill all at the same time when your singer is trying to sing just the verse, So like people need to give way. What I keep telling them is like, hold off everything here. In this part, if your singer is just singing something, okay, don't be playing your lead at that same part. Wait for your singer to like not sing, and then whatever gap you have there that has no vocals, then put your lead in there, and then stop when they start singing again, because that will make you shine even brighter instead of having to like super make laban all these other like instruments and stuff like that. And then I guess the last thing that would make like good, like a good song, it's not necessarily the production, it's the type of production or the type of treatment you give it. Like you can't have like a garage rock indie sort of like song and have it mixed like it's meant for like Lea Salonga, like you like, okay, my point is like, so you had like back in the day you had like Typecast, and they recorded like in Malaysia. Their mix was bagay for their album, but then you have a band like Bamboo, and then like their music is supposed to be super heavy, but then they like recorded it in like, I don't know what label they were under. I think like either BMG or Universal or something. Like the mix was just freaking horrible for what it was, and super sayang because they have good instrumentalists. So like last, it's like you don't need, but they had like a pristine mix. The mix was pristine. It was so nice and so clear. It just sucked ass because it wasn't bagay. Things needed to be dirty. Things needed to be heavy, but whoever mixed that didn't do it. So again, it's not how clean your mix is, but it's how bagay your mix is supposed to be for that song, you know? I can't say anything else.
Well, I think to add to dun sa sinabi ni Kuya Nick, I think it all boils down to parang, I think, say for example, a band, parang pinag-isipan ba nilang mabuti or parang did they, when they were making it, were they making it with, or parang, are they true to themselves while making it? Kasi ang daming halimbawa magsusulat ng kanta, they were ripping off too much from someone's work na they just sound like that other band. I think sa case na yon nagiging horrible. Parang they're using someone else's feelings towards their work and then dump it on their own. Ano yun talaga, kung kanila talaga yung parang nilalagay nila doon. Well, everyone can rip off, but are they ripping off in a way na they're making it their own?
Pero kasi parang ano din parang culture din ata or nature ng mga Pinoy to take something, someone else's work and make it their own. Parang that's how I see it lately. Or they claim that it's theirs. But
I think it's more of like they want to be known as the Filipino blank, and that sucks, you know.
Yun,
it's like, oh, that's like the Filipino Arctic Monkeys. It's like, dude, that's so lame. Why do you want to be the Filipino Arctic? Why do you think that's cool, you know? Or like, it's like, oh yeah, that's like the Filipino, like, God, yeah. I mean, that's to say every single band now sounds like Arctic Monkeys. So like, it's like, it's like, why do you want to do that? Oh, or like, oh, that's like the Filipino, Mac DeMarco or something. You know, it's so lame. You know, I understand that a lot of these people are influenced, but then there's like a very thin line between like influence and ripping off. You know, so and I understand. It's hard. Not everybody is a genius or whatever. Not everybody is very good at being unique or whatever. But then at the same time, it's like, I mean, it's the mentality. A lot of them want to be the Filipino version of, instead of thinking, I want to be who I want to be. And if you go and check out, like, my artists that are under Eclectic Kiss, my label, I mean, we're super small and like nobody really cares super hard. But we're making an effort to show people that there is music out there that isn't necessarily ridiculously derivative. Because these are people that I've found, and I myself think like, wow, there's no one, like, you can't really compare these people because they're making their own music, you know. So, you know, without having to, I need to sound like Chainsmokers, you know, like, you know, it's you know, I'm kind of lost now, but but yeah.
I got it. Thank you for those inputs. Mag-zoom in tayo sa more of personal. I'm curious, as an arranger, composer, producer, how's your schedule like?
Well, like, before the pandemic, it would be like, and I want to go as early back as before I was married. So when I was when I was done with college and I was still single is still meaning I had a girlfriend or whatever, but like, who eventually became my wife. What I'm trying to say is that when I was just like a dude with no house and like still living with my dad, but I had my recording studio, like, I would, you know, just like be at home finishing my mixes for other clients from the time I wake up, which would be 11 a.m. And then like when it became like 4 o'clock, I'd go over to Makati, go to my go to my office to see the next client, and then so from 4 up until maybe 1 a.m. we'd be working on our stuff. And that's just me. If I have like an arranging thing to do, that's purely in the time when I'm not in the studio. If I have to arrange something for like a jingle, I do that purely at home. Now, fast forward to when I was married but not with the kid, same exact shit. When I had the kid, and this is pre-pandemic, now it was almost impossible in the beginning because like me and my wife, we have a house, but we don't have any yayas. So we have so many things to maintain all on ourselves. I have to cook breakfast, and then I have to like wash my kid's ass, and like I have to do all these things, and then like when he goes to sleep, then I would run my computer and like work on some mixes. I was like ridiculously like pre-pandemic, like I was out of my mind. I didn't know what to do, and then I would have to leave the house, and I'd feel bad for my wife because my mother-in-law would have to come and help her, and while I'm at the studio like working with people. Now pandemic, and now that my kid is a bit older now, you know, everything now is systematic. Like I have to have the entire morning up until 11 o'clock dedicated to taking care of my family. And that means I have to wake up at like 6 in the morning because this kid, the way he wakes me up, he like jumps on my face. But anyway, so I'm up at 6 in the morning every day, breakfast, play with him. We can't go out, so we go to our yard and I spray him with a hose for like an hour because he likes it, you know. And then at 11 o'clock, when I'm already exhausted and my wife and my kid are taking a nap, that's when I get to work. And I get to work for maybe until like 2 hours. So 1 o'clock, this kid wakes up, and then I can't work anymore up until maybe like, let's say 3 o'clock. And then I have from 3 until 5 to do stuff. And then after that, the only time I get like then dinner time, and then I have to put them to bed, and then now they're sleeping. It's 8:30, and that's when I got to do this thing with you guys at 8:30. But usually at 8:30, that's when I actually start all my stuff. And since it's pandemic stuff, like I get to do the arranging, I get to do mixes, I get to do whatever. So what I can tell you, even with my resources, I have my own drum set, I have my own like guitars and amps, I have like basically a recording studio and stuff. Like if you're not single, if you're married, and if you're just stuck at home, things are it's possible, but it's like it's very nerve-wracking, and like but it's also at the same time very rewarding, because like when you're finished with something and then you show your wife, and then your kid is like dancing to the song of like the client that you just worked on, then you know, okay, I did a good job, all right, give me the next one, you know. So like yeah, I think I've just kind of detailed what maybe every single married music arranger going through at the moment.
Crazy sked, no? Sobrang
Yeah.
tight yung schedule.
Yeah.
What about you, Kevin? Parang
Sa
nocturnal
case
ka
ko,
ata.
well, sa case ko, before the pandemic, since I was working for a company as a arranger, so we had this schedule, or I had the schedule from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. So I do all my work within that. Then for the rest of the day, or if mag half day ako, I do other things like kapag merong orchestra recording, nag-half day ako or nag-leave ako ng isang buong araw. And then I do other stuff during the weekends. So yun. Then came the pandemic. Nung siguro parang months into the pandemic, nag-freelance ako. Yung schedule ko, there's nothing really fixed. Kasi I'm not getting a constant amount of workload. So, let's say for example, si client A nagsabi na merong gantong may gantong order. I work on it straight. So, kung mahirap siya, I spend more hours with the occasional breaks whenever I can. So, there was this time sa sobrang hirap ng file. So, parang ang ginawa ko. Tapos, rush. So, ginawa ko, hindi ako, hindi ako, nag-work ako nakuha ko siya parang like 12 noon. So, I worked through it hanggang 7, tapos kumain lang ako ng konti, and then natulog ako, then the next day, parang ganun din, 12 to 7, nag-work ako. Tapos, parang nung nare-realize ko na hindi ako aabot, magpupuyat ako, I'll make that kind of adjustment sa schedule. So, yun yung kapag, halimbawa, meron akong mga mahihirap na wala talagang permanent schedule. Kung kailangan magpuyat, I will stay up late. As in, no sleep at all. There was this time, nagbigay siya, like, Friday. Tapos, I think, if I remember it right, dapat merong parang ino-observe din yung weekends. But, nagulat na lang ako na parang Monday yung deadline, so I worked through the weekends. Yun, depende kung ano yung kailangan ng certain workload. Kung halimbawa, parang rush siya, yun, may times na halimbawa, actually there was this time, ang consistent lang is yung schedule ng tulog ko, which was from 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. Sobrang parang ina-adjust ko. Tapos kapag when super desperate, even that 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. I cut it off. Kasi hindi ako natutulog. So, yun yung medyo mahirap sa case ko since freelancer ako. I'm so in control of my time, yet parang I'm not in control of my time. Kasi yun nga, parang may assigned deadline, madalas rush.
Depende
madalas
rin sa work, sa sa biglaang client. So you really can control.
Kung ano talaga, whatever that specific job request needed. Kaya wala talaga ako permanent schedule. Kaya nakakaigits ko yan I envy.
mas challenging ba pag sobrang freelance, no? Pero ayaw mo nun, parang may pro na wala ka pang, na single ka. Parang may pro siya.
Yeah. Na single ako, tapos I live with my parents, so I don't have to do much chores other than washing the dishes. Pero yun talaga.
Oh my God. Chores are like the worst. I hate, I do so many chores that it's come to the point where like I actually love doing the dishes because my wife sees it as a chore, but it gives me a time to watch YouTube on my phone. So, and that's like the only time, because other than that, what my wife doesn't like me doing is like, let's say it's like me and my kid are just chilling on the floor because he's like playing with his trucks, and she's like a workaholic in terms of chores. Like if she doesn't want to sit, she'll like want to clean a rug or like vacuum or something, and if I'm not doing anything, she'll make me do something. Be like, you can't just be lazy like that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I got all this other stuff to do. It's really tough. Like this pandemic sucks real hard. But at the same time, it's like I do get to spend time with my family too. Because I have a feeling like maybe if we were not all stuck at home and if I kept going to my studio and stuff, I would not be as close to my kid and my wife as I possibly would be that I am now. Like my kid like actually really loves me like for real because he has only seen my face for the past 2 years, you know. But it's cool because my kid now knows how to play drums and he's only 2 years old. So that's also cool.
Posts
Yeah.
He's being trained a long time.
Yeah. So but I get what Kevin was saying like about the whole like you're so in control of your time but you're not. And that's partly because of the, again, like your clients, your demands, the type of work that it is. And like, but me being my own boss and stuff, because like I answer to no one except for the clients, and maybe half the times the client usually has a lot of trust in me because I've made a previous artist sound good. But then again, if I have those more demanding ones and they want me to do something exactly how it is, it's like even though I get to work at home and like I have control of my own time, it's like that will be difficult because then again, yeah, they will bother you at like an ungodly hour. You know, like okay, when I take corporate jobs, like my last thing that I had to do was for I think for God, what's that thing? It's like Fiesta Pasta or whatever. I did some commercial for that, and like I made them a whole thing, and then the producer calls me at like 11 at night. I'm like, yo, like even though I wasn't really sleeping because I don't sleep at 11, but like I'm like, hey, this is like an ungodly hour. What are you doing? He's like, well, client needs this by this time. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine, all right, whatever. Again, so it really depends on who your client is and how demanding they are. If it's corporate, yeah, it's gonna suck ass. But if you are lucky enough to work with people who reach out to you to work on their music because of who you are, or who you've worked on in the past, then that's where you have more control. So like hopefully a lot of other aspiring arrangers and producers can get to the point that their work is recognized so that they can make their own rules, which is a big factor to comfortableness,
Okay, got it. So talagang on a case to case basis if it's in your control, your schedule, no. And the factors nga at home, like Nick is a family man and Kevin is really straight up working 24/7, I guess.
Well, not really 24/7. There are times na I have the option to decline naman some specific clients kapag hindi talaga kaya ng schedule or I'm already working on something else and I don't want to be distracted or I don't want to be juggling through my deadlines. I openly tell them na hey, I'm working on this. Give me work after this, or I'll give a specific day or date. So I'm not really 24/7. But it depends. Once pero kapag kinuha ko na 'yon, nako. Ano 'yon? Parang wala ka na 'yon, lalong wala ka ng schedule.
Get it. Final question for you guys. About charging, how much should you really charge your clients? Depending pa rin ba talaga?
Well, I mean, like what I didn't do before, and what is usually standard is that like you should really pay by the hour, but because I know how quick I work and I know how effective I am and I know my timeline. But this is when I had my studio. This isn't now. Like before, when I had my studio and you wanted to work with me in person and stuff, I would just give a flat rate because I already knew I'm gonna take this long on these people. And this is at least with the people that I knew, But like, had I known, like with those other bands that remember, like they didn't know what to do, and they were just in there and they didn't know what the hell they were doing. I should have charged per hour, because had I charged per hour, I could have just been like, okay, I'm gonna sit here. You guys can just throw your money away while you're not doing anything, but I'll reap the benefit. So I mean, nowadays though, unless you have your own studio, or unless you're like on the clock with something, you can't really charge by the hour. So what would be smart is to not just be so game with like a set price, like for this person, like, oh, just pay me this or whatever, unless you know them, unless they're like your friend or whatever. And because I give leeway to the people that I know. I don't give them my like ridiculous
real, like, I don't want to disclose how much I charge actually, but what I will say is that, like, for a real production, for a real client, take into account how many hours do you believe you're gonna work on this? How much of your brain is going to be used? How much of the musical talent that you do have is going to be needed for this song? And lastly, um, do you expect them to do a lot of revisions? If you can already tell that these people are very meticulous and there's going to be a million revisions, you should know to charge for that also. So you have to be very systematic with your clients, and you should feel them out always. Like for me, when it's like a serious client, I always tell them, hey, let's have like a Zoom meeting first, and let me get to know what you want and who you are as a person. Because back before the pandemic, when I meet with an artist, I wouldn't just go straight into the studio and be like, let's record. I always told them, if you want to work with me, I need to have like a face-to-face with you so that I can know who you are and what you're all about, so that I know that I'm going to do the music that you are going to be comfortable with. At the same time, me being comfortable with what I'm doing for you also. So, I guess as detailed as my answer was, it was still pretty vague.
Yeah.
Bottom line is, you can't really, you just gotta feel out the price. Like, I mean, don't be so set on whatever price it is. Just do it based on the amount of work that you're doing. Because you might charge a person, like, let's say like a few $1,000, and you think it's big, but let's say you spent like a month on it, and it's super lugi for your not only your physical health but your mental health.
Siguro the reason why I ask this is, especially sa Philippines, people don't know that music production takes time and it really should cost a lot. And when you disclose your charge, they are surprised. And for them, it's ridiculous. That's why I asked the question. So they should really know that hindi basta-basta yung work that you do.
Yeah,
You put
like,
in a lot.
that's why you need to know. Like for me, I should be charging a lot more, but then I'm also putting into factor, oh, it's pandemic and musicians like aren't gonna be able to invest that much. But I can also be a great help to my community, and all at the same time still make some money from it. So I will disclose this for as long as it has been, for like, all these lockdowns and like not being able to really go out, and like a lot of musicians, some of them who are actual like performing musicians, they don't have money because there's no gigs or whatever. Like I've been very, but then if they have that itch, I really need to get my music out, I'm not gonna charge them what I usually did before, because I understand, but then again, they should be willing to invest if they still want to take the risk and like put something out in a time like this. So, but yeah, it's unfair it's also unfair for a lot of musicians to seek the help of a professional, and then they're also surprised, like, uy, kala ko like 1.5 lang po. It's like, dude, like, come on, like, so like, I mean, musicians have to be smart too. And if they can't afford it, they should at least learn how to do it themselves. That's why it's like during the pandemic, I've worked with really adamant musicians, but then at the same time, I'm also making money because, like, corporate people need jingles and stuff. So it's a grab bag for me now. I'm not working with so many artists because I can't. But it's given me an opportunity to, do more corporate stuff too. So,
What about you, Kevin?
Well, for my case, since I'm a karaoke arranger, free even up until now, I have two clients, and yung mga work na tinatanggap ko from them, may flat rate yun, which I will not disclose. Yeah? Since both are actually corporate ones. Pero yun. So, yung rates ko naman for the stuff na I do outside of those, binase ko dun sa parang how much I work on those, or yun, parang ano ba, kung halimbawa yung instrumentation, is it reasonable, parang kung ikukumpara sa dun sa sa isa kong line of work. And I think depende rin talaga sa sa client. There was this meron akong friend, grabe, siya, parang MIDI arranger din siya, pero aside from yung nga niya, yung kinukuha niya na na workload niya from the company, meron siyang personal na gumagawa siya ng -1. Ang tawag niya doon 1,000 line. Kasi kasi gagawa siya ng he'll make the -1 for you for just 1K. And yung niya doon, parang ang idea niya doon is parang he will work on it quickly. Tapos kung ano yung stuff na meron siya, which is actually yung mga instruments niya, mga premium instruments, mga bayad, mga binibili niya talaga. Kunwari mga contact libraries or mga VST instruments, plugins. Yun. Nag-ano siya doon, flat rate. Whatever it is, flat rate. Kasi yun nga yung tinawag niya. It's so that he can get a lot of requests, tapos tatapusin niya ng mabilis to the best of his ability. Tapos, yun, he can earn as much as that. So, yung other stuff na ginagawa ko, binasi ko dun sa sa concept niya, na parang I will charge flat, although hindi ko i-charge na mas expensive kesa dun, kasi I cannot work as quick as that guy. I cannot work as high quality as that guy. So, yun, doon ko binase yung yung rates ko for the personal stuff. Tas parang I just made sure na halimbawa, if magpapaareglo ka, if you will have me arrange something for you, that's it. Mixing and mastering that certain thing, it's different. There's a different charge for that. If I'm going to mix it, there's a separate charge. If I'm going to master it, there's a separate charge. Kasi if you don't make sure that those things or services are separate, you will it's 3 times the amount of work for the price of one. Lugi ka dun. And then there was this one time, may job request sa akin na hindi ko i-disclose. Pero the client kept on chatting me saying, "Hey, this guy wants this to sound like this." And then then I do it, and then I sent the file afterwards, and then a few hours later that client came back to me requesting another change. So what I failed during that time is charging a revision fee, because it added to your workload. So you think it's actually the final, then your client comes back to you requesting these sort of changes. But since I failed to realize that I have to charge a revision fees for revision, I had to do more work with the amount that's already paid to me. So yun, you have to think about that, because siguro nakailang oras din ako dun sa revisions na yun. So those are things that you need to think about. Well, kagaya nun sa sinabi ni Kuya Nick, right now it's the pandemic, so it's not really exactly possible to charge on a per hour basis, especially if hindi ka nakikita ng client. But I think even during the pandemic, it's still preferable to charge a per hour basis on how much time you spent working on it. But I think you have to make certain adjustments for certain clients or yun. Pero since two of my clients charge ko na flat rate because corporate, I don't have much problems with that. Yung mga direct sa akin ng medyo iniisip ko ng mabuti.
Thank you so much, Nick and Kevin, for sharing all those things that people need to know about music production. And if you have any words for those who are aspiring to produce their own music, kindly go ahead.
Well, I mean, the time is now, since the technology is it's making things very possible. So my kind words that I can tell people that want to get into this is learn as much as you can. And with as much as you learn, that's as much as that you can do. Regardless if you have your connections or like if you have if you're not working with like big people yet, remember that it takes time. And always remember, if you're like 25 and you're still not seeing success, you're still young. Like, don't think that 25 is not like, oh, I didn't make it and like I'm almost 30. Like, dude, I didn't get my success until I was like 29. So like, I mean, just keep at it. And things are becoming a bit more competitive now. But all the more for you to learn more and get on the same page as a lot of other people who are hungry. So just do it. Don't be discouraged. That's it.
Kevin?
Feeling ko para sa akin talaga yung sinabi ni Kuya Nick. Because to be honest, I actually feel like I'm just starting now. But if I have to give an advice, siguro don't be too picky with the people you work with. I think, say for example, if you have a band, work with your band. If you belong to a church na may band, work with that. Work on that. If your relatives request work from you, you have to start working on those things. Otherwise, kapag nagkaroon ka na ng actual clients, parang mabibigla ka. Getting work whenever you can will give you an idea. Ano ba yung kailangan? What do I need? What do I lack in terms of knowledge, in terms of skill? Yun. Those will be your first clients, your friends, your acquaintances, your family. So,
Don't be picky, no?
don't be too picky.
Thank you
Ganun
so
talaga
much.
sa umpisa.
Thank you, Kevin and Nick, for taking the time to do this. Grabe, you really invested time to share what you know about music production. And thank you so much.
Welcome.